Hey everyone, so today I'm going to show you how to set up Nextbase Ultimate on your local machine. So specifically we are on Nextbase Ultimate v3 and so to set up Nextbase Ultimate you can clone the repo using git clone this URL and optionally you can give a folder name, but you can leave it at this also if you just want to clone clone as Nextbase Ultimate folder. Anyway, so once the repository has been cloned, you can open the repo in VS Code or Cursor, whichever IDE you prefer, and then in the first glance we can see that we have the src folder where all of our TypeScript code is present. We have the Supabase folder where all the migrations for the tables that need to be created are present. So once we run the migration commands, that is when the database will be set up. I'll show you more once we get there, but this is where all the Next.js stuff happens. So the app folder is entirely about Next.js routing and Next.js server components, all the Next.js magic. And then we have the reusable components folder, the documentation related folder, context, data. Data is where you have your Supabase data fetching logic. Then we have a payments folder and Supabase clients folder where we set up different clients based on the environment they're going to run. So if it's a client only Supabase connector, then there's a different client for that and so on. Finally, we have our playwright folder where we have the configuration for our integration tests. We have the E2E folder where all the integration tests are present, and then we have the emails folder, just a few templates that you can use to quickly configure React email based components that you can use to send email through your Node.js or Next.js code. And finally, we have messages folder where we have a setup for integration, for internationalization. So you can create different versions of your text, which will be used appropriately. So for example, if you are currently viewing the English language, then English.json file and the content there will be loaded. If you prefer to use the if your user is viewing German, then those messages would be loaded into the components. Nothing fancy. This is standard internationalization logic in Next.js, built using Next-i18n. The package is pretty standard. Let me find it. Next Intel, sorry. Yeah, so this package. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's quickly get started. So the first step that we need to do is to set up our is to install all the packages. So we are using pnpm, but you can use any other package manager of your choice. So once we install this, it's going to load all the packages including Supabase. This includes the Supabase CLI, which manages the Docker environment. Supabase CLI or just Supabase? I think it's just Supabase, if I'm mistaken. Yeah, it's just this one. So this manages the setting up of Docker on local. But otherwise, we have the Supabase JS package, and then we have Supabase SSR package, and so on. Anyway, so now we have our packages installed. So the next setup is to set up the database. So the recommended setup, in my opinion, in your dev environment is to use Docker. The recommended approach from the Supabase team, and something that I agree, is you should use a Docker environment for localhost for local development, and not just connect to a remote Supabase database, because using a Docker environment will help you to try out different database tables before you actually fixate on a structure for any particular task. So let us say you're trying to build a table for a particular scenario, like a to-do list or something. Using a Docker environment will help you quickly iterate and arriving on the final changes that you need to do, and you can do so without affecting a lot of your production data. Anyway, so let us set that up. So the first step would be to set up an env file, env.local file that Supabase also expects. So I'm going to paste this. So both Next.js and Supabase read from the same environment.local file on localhost. So Supabase really requires these values to be set, otherwise it won't really run. Even if these values are not valid, it's fine, but it needs to find these variables because Nextbase Ultimate actually ships with a ships with provider based login. So the moment you're ready with your provider keys, you can just replace them. But if these values are not present, Supabase will throw up and not allow you to go forward. Anyway, so the env file is set up. Actually, just let me explain this a little bit. So env.local file here is simply a copy of env.local.example on local. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to change anything here. All of these values are perfectly fine. So the hard-coded anon keys, hard-coded service role key, everything is perfectly fine here. You don't have to change anything because the Docker image is expecting these values. Okay, so now that we have an env.local file ready, then now let us run pnpm Supabase start. So now if you don't have Docker running, you'll have to make sure Docker is running. It's going to take a few minutes to get set up. Okay, now that it is ready, I'll run this command again, and if there are some containers already running, it's going to prompt you to run this command, and I'm just going to say pnpm and then paste this, which will stop the container. So now at this point, before you start running your Docker image, if you want to maybe give your project a certain name, that would be a good idea, because let us say you're working on different Nextbase Ultimate packages. The Docker images will conflict if you give them all the same name. So in your Supabase folder config.yml file, you can give them different IDs so that they all have different databases, different database volumes, and so on. So let's call this Nextbase Ultimate Demo v3. So now I'm going to run pnpm Supabase start, and this will start creating those packages, those containers for me. It's going to take a few minutes. Meanwhile, I'm going to just quickly talk to you about the migrations file. So you can see that these files somehow got executed. So what these files are as follows. So all of these files are responsible for creating your database table structure. So for example, Nextbase Ultimate ships with workspaces, profiles, some marketing related tables, and so on. So instead of just writing SQL commands directly in the Supabase editor, which is ephemeral, the moment you write them, they are, and you close the tab, the SQL command is gone, really. So migrations are a way of writing code that you can run repeatably. Repeatably, is that a word? Anyway, so that you can run over and over, and what it means is that your migrations are sort of a record of all the commands that I've run so far. So let us say at some point I create a new table, a new file here with some new tables, and let us say I don't want that table anymore. I can revert it by creating another migration file which negate this structure. But the thing is, migrations give you a way for you to ensure that all the SQL instructions you write are reproducible across multiple environments. So your local environment will have the same instructions run as the production environment. So there is nothing surprising, and you'll be able to reproduce the same errors that happen in production and local. I think that's the best explanation I can give. And also, reverting migrations is more straightforward and more reliant on the code rather than arbitrary SQL commands, trial and error on the production database. So these are some of the big reasons for using migrations. But yeah, again, just to outline, the main important thing here is that migrations allow you to make sure that everyone who uses your code base, let us say you have a team of 15 developers, everyone will be able to reproduce the same database state as long as the migrations file don't really change. With that out of the way, let's take a look at what this has. So what these values are. So if you're interested in GraphQL, you can take a look at this URL. But the really important URLs here are the studio URL. So localhost 54323. Let me quickly open that. So this will spawn up a Supabase Studio server. So Supabase Studio is simply the part of Supabase that is responsible for displaying tables and all of that. So this is the same thing that runs on supabase.com. So now our localhost Docker image has already been set up with all the tables that Nextbase Ultimate requires. And so this is the studio URL where you can preview all the data. And then we have the in-bucket URL. So this Docker container is responsible for handling your fake email server. So when you try out authentication on local, there's not really an SMTP server running, but there's a fake server running called in-bucket, which pretends to send an email, but it's just a record that it'll show. So when you sort of log in using your email, there is a record for that email in bucket, and you can just all the links, all the emails get stored in bucket, and you can just use them to log in. And the rest of these things are the exact values that you have seen in env.local. So this JWT secret that I pasted here, so all of these values are the same. So our Supabase connection, the Supabase URL is this. This is the actual Postgres, the actual Supabase URL that our environment connects to. Anyway, so okay, long story, but I think we're finally ready to run the server. So let me run pnpm dev. So this will now start the Next.js Ultimate server. Okay, localhost 3000. Okay, there we go. So so this is how you set up Nextbase Ultimate on local. I'll take a few steps further. So let's also set up a login. So we don't have an account yet, so let's sign up. And I'm going to say test@admin.com. So remember, on local, it doesn't have to be a real email. It can be anything, because emails are not really sent. They are just forwarded to our in-bucket server. So you can just give a random email, random password, and sign up. So now if you go to localhost 54324, the in-bucket server, and go to monitor tab, you'll see that the email has arrived here. And you can just click on this, and it'll take you to the onboarding page. So you're now logged in, just that the onboarding flow for Nextbase Ultimate has now begun. So I'm just going to enter some details and ask you to set up my personal workspace. And there we go. So we are in. So I'll talk about all the internals of Nextbase Ultimate in a different video, but I just want to talk about one more thing, which is the admin panel and how to quickly make your user an admin. So if you go back to Supabase Studio and go to authentication and authentication, so you see this user ID field. You copy that. So right now this user is not an admin because there is some UID here that is missing that would normally appear for an admin. So this user is currently not an admin. I'm going to take his user ID and go to SQL panel. So this particular command shouldn't be a migration, because this is not a repeatable instruction, but rather it's a change to the actual content of a database and not the structure of the database. Anyway, so you have to select make user app admin and just put in the user ID and run the command. So this is done. Now you can close this tab, and here if you reload, nothing really happens because the token, the login token for this user hasn't really changed yet. So what you can do is you can log out and log in again. So I'm going to log out and then test@admin.com. So once I log in, I can see a few more things here, and all of these are the admin controls that the application admin has for this SaaS. So okay, I'm still going onward, but there's still one other thing that I want to show you, which is the payment gateways. So right now, if you go to the payment panel, admin panel, the Stripe product manager content here is empty because we have not really linked Stripe yet. And also if you go to any organization's billing section, there is nothing here really. There are no plans, no one-time purchases, nothing that the user can take action on. So what you can do is to quickly set up a payment, quickly set up Stripe to the app, you'll have to go to developer section and grab a couple of keys, the Stripe secret key and the Stripe what was that? Stripe secret and Stripe public key, I think. I don't know whatever that is, but I have those keys set up for a different project. I'm going to quickly just paste them. So again, this does not really set up webhooks. So when some action really happens on a Stripe account, if a user actually purchases a plan, nothing really happens yet, because the webhook connection is a different process, which I'll talk about in a different video, or you can check out the documentation. But at least you'll be able to quickly pull in content for you to take action on. So I'm going to grab the secret variables and go back to here and just paste them here. Okay, so now that I've pasted it, Next.js really doesn't require me to restart the server or anything. I can just quickly, I think this, I don't have to do anything at this point. I can just go to sync Stripe products and click on this button, and it's going to fetch all the Stripe products and prices that are created in Stripe, in my Stripe dashboard, and it's going to pull them in to my SaaS. They are actually added as values to the table. So you can look at localhost 54323 and go to the products and prices section. So billing underscore products. That's where you're going to see all the products added, and prices are, you know, all the different prices that a product has, yearly, monthly, one time, you know, all of those things. And now finally, as a normal regular user, I can go to the billing section, and I'll be able to see all the things that I can purchase here, and I can click on this and actually purchase and go through the entire flow. But since webhooks are not configured, the app, even after the Stripe purchase, the app doesn't yet know that a purchase has happened, because Stripe has no way of notifying this app. But we'll cover that in the next video. But hopefully this covers a few aspects of Nextbase Ultimate and help you get quickly set up with this project. So thank you. Please stay tuned for future videos, and have a nice day.